Good morning. My name is Dave Neff, and it's a joy to fill in for Dave Johnson this morning. I want to share several things. Three key points: an amazing discovery, some amazing science, an amazing opportunity. I don't want to overuse the word amazing, but I'm going to this morning. It's just been a joy to me. A little bit about my personal story and how this amazing discovery came into my life. First of all, I'm the second oldest of 11 siblings, and from the same parents, I might add, this morning. And interestingly enough, I read my first scientific and medical study through the Stanford Medical Library down in California. And I read that at age 20 and had this deep desire, developed this deep desire to stay healthy naturally. And the interesting part is after I spent 6 years with the United States Air Force and 2 years in the Vietnam War zone, came away with some injuries and things like that, but I was able to get back into my life. And so I got back into reading scientific studies and medical studies, trying to stay abreast of what was new. And I found that to be extremely helpful. Instead of simply seeking to get a degree in one particular arena, I tried to stay with what's new, what's happening, what's being studied. And it was amazingly helpful to me. And it got me over into an arena that dealt with cardiovascular disease. And this book is written by Dr. Louis J. Ignatow, who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for what he discovered. And that marked my life because cardiovascular disease was the biggest killer, and still is for that matter. And so I invested $20,000 approximately into a piece of medical equipment, and then became certified on that and began traveling all over the country and all over Canada, testing patients for medical doctors, naturopathic doctors, chiropractors, lots of medical people. And as I would test these people, I found literally about 95% all had major cardiovascular problems. So then I would teach what Dr. Ignatow discovered, what won the Nobel Prize, and then I would guide them into a supplementation process that featured his recommended formulations. And in doing so, I saw tremendous amounts of people get well. Then later on in life, let me put it this way, for many, many years, I worked with vitamins and minerals and herbs and all kinds of different types of homeopathic remedies and so on and so forth. And about a decade ago, I started seeing some of these recommendations not work as well. And then my siblings started getting deathly ill and started passing away. And I thought, what is going on? So I started looking deeply into other arenas, disease arenas, if you will. And when my fifth sibling was dying, I got a call from a friend. And that friend said, Dave, you're going to want to know about this for your brother. That's the way it sounded. And I'm going, know about what? And she said, I don't know how to tell you, except there's a scientist that's been working on something for over 20 years. And it's finally come to fruition. It's actually allowing people's bodies to become so thoroughly cleaned out that their bodies, in the words of the scientists, are able to fix themselves. And I was just dumbfounded. And after reading 14 of his peer-reviewed studies, seeing what he was doing in the medical journals, I knew I would owe it to my brother to at least give it a try. And my brother had already spent over $150,000 out of his own pocket, not counting his insurance, to try all kinds of natural treatments for his very challenging situation. And he finally became comatose, was at home where he wanted to die, and couldn't talk basically. And then when I found out about this new discovery, I spent about $1,500, got plenty of it, and went to his house about 50 miles from where I was living. And I was back and forth helping care for him anyway. And I got a couple of his sons and one of my brothers to help me. All I did was pull his lips apart and squirt a little bit of the liquid of one of the scientist's first discoveries into his mouth every hour that he was awake. And again, I had help doing it. And it took about 45 days. And all of a sudden, he woke up and said, how can you keep pulling on my lips? And it was just like, wow, we cracked up, because that was the sound of my brother healthy. But he went right back to sleep, right back into comatose condition. And it took about more days of doing the same thing, putting a squirt of this new discovery into his mouth. And then all of a sudden he woke up. He took the oxygen source off. He was on oxygen 24/7, sat up, and within another day he was out of bed, got dressed normally, and it was kind of like, what's going on? And then when I was able to teach him the science behind this new discovery, he took his Apple Watch, set it for once every hour, and started just putting this liquid in his mouth every hour. All right, long story real short. It took about 5 months altogether. And in 5 months, they couldn't find a trace of his problem that literally was supposed to end his life. And he started living a normal life. Now, it's shocking to me because this went on. My next brother that got a major disease, he was in the Vietnam War zone, and he got some very, very toxic materials into his body and started having major problems. And my sister had some problems and so on. Anyway, they used this discovery, got well. They're doing just fine today. So it's interesting. I could tell you lots more details, but for the sake of time, let me just leave it there. That personal story is what got me awake to this scientist's new discoveries. And the interesting part is what happened with me is it saved the lives of some of my siblings. I was deeply thankful to God for this discovery. I mean, it just was a blessing to me. And the interesting part is, as my siblings got well, people that knew them and people that knew me began to ask, what are you doing? How did you do this? Well, we didn't, but a new discovery did. And here's what the scientists said. When you thoroughly and effectively clean out the heavy metals from the human body, the body will begin to fix itself like it was designed to do. So there it is again. When you clean out the heavy metals and toxins from the body will begin to fix itself like it was designed to do, quote unquote. That's exactly what was happening. And so that's what I mentioned to these people. And they said, where can I get some? And I mean, I never once said to them, hey, I got a product you got to try. I wasn't in that mode. I was in the mode of saving my siblings' lives and trying to stay healthy. And the interesting part is what we discovered and what came to reality was the fact that it's not just eating right or exercising right or getting proper sleep or putting the right nutrients, vitamins, minerals, herbs, etc. into the body. No, it's getting the bad things out of the body that made such a dramatic difference. And I come back to my initial word, an amazing difference. I mean, it was saving lives. And then now more and more people began to lose their big issues. Their bodies got cleaned out. Their bodies began to fix themselves. They got well, and they have been able to live normal lives. Wow. Totally impressed. So let me just tell you a tiny bit about this amazing science. What was interesting to me is I had never heard at that moment details about the rock known as zeolite, and especially one in particular known as clinoptilolite zeolite. But what I discovered from this scientist's discoveries and from his work was that when a volcano explodes and the molten lava flies into the air and drops down, especially into salt water, it forms this rock called clinoptilolite zeolite. And in a nutshell, here's what happens. When that rock forms, that rock is, you could call it porous if you want, but the bottom line is inside of it, instantly formed, are thousands upon thousands of tiny little chambers or cages. And every single one of those cages has a very strong negative electrical charge. This is interesting to me because heavy metals and toxins like cadmium and arsenic and aluminum and lead and mercury, all these bad things, they have a very strong positive electrical charge. So the second that rock forms, those little tiny cages immediately start attracting and pulling in heavy metals and toxins right out of the air around it, out of the earth around it, etc. And the interesting part is what people found out about 200 years ago, plus or minus, is that if they took that rock and ground it into powder and put it into things like cat litter Wow, the cat could be right there in the corner of your living room, pooping and peeing in a box, and you wouldn't even smell it. Why? Because some of those cages were not full. The ones that got filled up by trapping different heavy metals and toxins in them were no longer attracting anything. But the empty ones would attract heavy metals and toxins and take the things out of the cat litter, if you will, that caused the smells, and you wouldn't smell it. Later on, they discovered ways of taking that rock, grinding it into powder, and putting it into supplement type things. Their hope was that at least whatever cages were still empty would go through the human body and attract bad things and take them out of the body and help the body be better. And that did happen to some degree, but not in a major way until this scientist made some amazing discoveries. Okay, what's interesting is it took him over 20 years. What he did, though, was three key things. One, he figured out a way to, this is his word, micronize it. So he would break it down into particles literally about the size of 1/7 the size of a single red human blood cell. So 7 times smaller than one red blood cell. And secondly, probably most important, he learned how to unlock and empty every one of those cages. So he has all those millions or thousands upon thousands of cages that came from that rock, and they're all completely empty. And thirdly, he learned how to recharge every one of those cages with that strong negative electrical charge. And then he registered the name of what he discovered as detoxolite. So now he takes these little tiny particles of detoxolite, he suspends them in highly purified water, and that became his first discovery. And that's what I was putting into my brother's mouth. I would just squirt a little bit of that fluid, shake it up because the detoxolite particles are heavier than water. So I'd shake it up, get them dispersed in there, and then put a few drops of that, basically a squirt of that in my brother's mouth. And in due time, it collected the heavy metals so efficiently out of his body that his body truly did begin to fix itself, and he became healthy again. Now, the interesting part is when anybody squirts that into their mouth, it gets into the bloodstream very quickly and goes everywhere the blood goes, into the brain, into the liver. Everywhere blood goes, it goes with it. And remember, it's about 7 times smaller than red blood cells, so it can get through the capillaries very readily. So it goes everywhere the blood goes, and it starts cleaning the heavy metals and toxins out of the blood. And then when the body notices that the blood is getting cleaner and cleaner, then the body begins to dump more heavy metals and toxins into the bloodstream. Where's it getting them? Well, ever since the day you and I were born, we've been doing 3 key things, every one of which brings at least trace amounts of heavy metals and toxins into our bodies every single day we live. We've been breathing air, we've been drinking water, and we've been eating food. And we get heavy metals and toxins every time we do those things. So every day we're bringing trace amounts in. The body notices them coming in, knows they're bad for the body, and what does the body do? It begins to hide those toxins in areas where they won't affect your organs. It hides them predominantly in fat cells and bones. And the interesting part is when the body gets to a point where it can't hide anymore, then it flows readily throughout your bloodstream and it starts affecting organs. And that's when typically major diseases take place. And I encourage you sometime use any search engine, Google for instance, and you type in a disease name and add 3 more words, and heavy metals. And you typically will see study after study after study proving that heavy metals collecting in the body are behind virtually every major disease. And what's interesting to me is to have been able to see this change the body in such a dramatic way that we now have a way of saving lives, of helping people get healthier, and better yet, of helping healthy people stay healthy. so that the collection of heavy metals doesn't affect them. Now, interestingly enough, the scientists went on and discovered numerous other things. And the interesting focus is that the second one he discovered took a focus on slowing down the intake of heavy metals. So, for instance, when you consume some of this with your meals, it mixes with the foods you're eating, and it grabs the heavy metals that are in those foods coming into you and takes them out of you before they can add to your body burden. There's another one that was focused on the colon. There's so many colon problems nowadays. And that one was designed to get down into the colon, help scrub it clean, yes, but it had larger particles of the detoxolite in it to help catch any heavy metals getting down into that area, and so on. We could talk about a lot of this more. The science is truly amazing and worth the time to understand it. The interesting part about the whole thing, back to the word amazing, there's an amazing opportunity here. I've been involved in the corporate world. I've been involved in natural health for almost 60 years now. Yes, I am 80. Don't feel like it one bit. In fact, you want to go running? Come on, let's go running today. Anyway, bottom line is, I'm seeing an amazing opportunity to help people physiologically and, interestingly enough, financially. This company actually pays out what I refer to as thank you dollars, because if we take the time, if we care enough about others and help them get well and teach them about maybe helping others get well, they will hand out thank you dollars just as a way of saying thank you. That's the way I'm going to put it for right now, because I didn't get involved with this whole operation to get into a business at all. I got involved to save my brother's life. And after that, my involvement continued on to save other siblings' lives. I mean, there's 6 of us remaining, and it's exciting to know that each one of us typically are healthy now and staying healthy. Now, as a result, many other people are healthy because we took the time to answer their questions. Typically, the question was, how did you do this? What are you using? Please tell me. And so I not only tell them, but I show them how to even get it wholesale from the company. Why should they pay retail if I can help them get it wholesale? And the interesting part is, a lot of those people have now began to literally teach other people about this new science. And they are saving lives. And some of them are earning some really, really good thank you dollars from the company, because this company, they tried early on, the scientists tried early on to put it into a store. It wasn't recognized. It didn't say aspirin, and they didn't know what it was. And so it wouldn't really move. It needed a situation where people could explain it firsthand, like I'm doing right now, to others. And the bottom line is, there is a tremendous physiological blessing, spiritual blessing, mental blessing in being able to help other people get well or stay well. Wow. I've retired 6 different times from the corporate world, and in all my other work, including everything I've done in the natural health arena, none of it was so blessed to me and so exciting to me to see so many people changing for the better physiologically. And then in many cases, financially too. Some of them couldn't afford maybe to get some of their natural treatments and whatnot. Now they can. How can they afford it? Because they're helping yet other people. It's an amazing, amazing discovery. It's got amazing science behind it, and it's an amazing opportunity.